to the first story, Cinderella, a classic. I shall read you what it says. Once upon a time in a faraway land, a widowed gentleman lived in a fine house with his only daughter. He gave his beloved child everything her heart desired. Beautiful dresses, a horse, a puppy. Still, he felt she needed a mother's care. So he married again, choosing a woman with 2 young daughters who he hoped would be playmates for his little girl. Sad to say, the good man died a short time later, and the stepmother then began to show her true nature. She was harsh and cold, and bitterly jealous of her stepdaughter's sweetness and beauty, qualities that made her own daughters, Anastasia and Drusilla, seem even meaner and uglier by contrast. The stepsisters were richly dressed, but the poor girl was forced to wear a coarse, plain dress and apron and do all the hardest jobs in the house. She got up before daybreak, carried water, lit the fires, cooked, and washed and scrubbed. When she had done her work, she used to go to the chimney corner and sit down there among the cinders and ashes to keep warm. Thus she came to be called Cinderella. Her stepmother and sisters slept in beautiful chambers, but Cinderella's tiny bedroom was up in the garret under the roof of the house, where dozens of mice lived. And yet, through it all, Cinderella remained gentle and kind, dreaming that someday happiness will come to her. She made friends with the birds who woke her each morning. She made friends with the mice who shared her garret. She made names to all the mice and sewed them tiny coats and hats for their part. The mice loved Cinderella and were grateful to her because she sometimes rescued them from a trap or saved them from Lucifer, her stepmother's bad-tempered cat. Each morning Cinderella made breakfast for the household, a bowl of milk for the cat, a bone for the dog, oats for her old horse, corn and grain for the chicken, geese, and ducks in the barnyard. Then she carried breakfast trays upstairs to her for her stepmother and Anastasia and Drusilla. Take that ironing and have it back in an hour, Drusilla demanded. Don't forget that mending, and don't be all day getting it done, Anastasia scolded. Really. Pick up the laundry and get on with your duties, her stepmother ordered. Scrub the large carpet in the main hall, wash the windows, clean the tapestries. Yes, Drusilla, yes, Anastasia, yes, stepmother, Cinderella replied as she set about her task carefully enough. Excuse me. Now it happened that on the other side of town, in the royal palace, the king and the grand duke were talking. It's high time the prince married and settled down, said the old king. But your majesty, replied the duke, first you must meet a girl and fall in love. You're right, the king agreed. We'll give a ball and invite every young girl in the kingdom. He's bound to fall in love with one of them. When the invitations to the ball were delivered, Anastasia and Drusilla danced for joy. A ball, we're going to a ball, they exclaimed. I am invited too, said Cinderella. It says, by royal command, every eligible maiden is to attend. The stepsisters laughed at the idea of Cinderella going to a ball, wearing her apron and carrying a broom, but her stepmother, with a sly smile, said of course Cinderella could go, if she finished her work and if she had suitable dress to wear. If, laughed Anastasia, if, Drusilla giggled. All day the stepsisters were busy choosing gowns, petticoats, and ornaments to wear in their hair. and long I'm so sorry, I cannot read. All day long they talked of nothing but how they should be dressed for the ball. Meanwhile, Cinderella was kept busier than ever. Okay, I found myself. For it was she who had to iron the full skirts, pleat the ruffles, and tie the ribbons into bows. When the carriage came to take the stepmother and her 2 daughters to the ball, Cinderella had not had a minute to get herself ready. Well, said her stepmother, then you're not going. Oh, what a shame. But there would be other times and other balls. And she said, and her ugly daughter swept out to the coach. Cinderella climbed the dark stairs to her room and gazed sadly out to the moonlit window at the distant castle. Suddenly a light appeared behind her. Turning, she saw that her candle had been lit and its glow hung lovely party dress. Her friends and birds Her friends and birds and the mice had made it for her as a surprise, trimming it with bits of ribbons and beads they had found about the house. In no time at all, Cinderella slipped into the dress, thanked her friends, and ran down the stairs, calling, "Please wait, I'm coming, too." But when Anastasia and Drizella saw her, they were furious. "My beads!" screamed one. "My ribbon!" howled the other. "You're a little thief!" And they snatched at Cinderella's dress until it was torn to rags. In tears, Cinderella ran across the yard to the garden. There she flung herself on the bench and sobbed. "It's just no use. Nothing will help. I give up." But at that moment, out of a cloud of magic stardust appeared a round-faced little woman in a hooded cloak. Nonsense. Okay. Oh, magic. Magic is going down. "Nonsense, child," she said with a sweet voice. "Dry those tears. You can't go to the ball looking like that." Cinderella stopped crying and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm your fairy godmother," said the woman, "and we don't have much time. I think the first thing you'll need is a pumpkin." Cinderella couldn't guess why, but she obediently fetched a large pumpkin. The godmother waved her wand over it and sang the magic words. "Salaga dula menchika bula bibbidi bobbidi doo." Boo. The pumpkin slowly rose on its vine, while its tendrils curled into wheels. In no time it had become a handsome coach. "Now, handsome? What?" "Now," said the godmother, "we'll need some mice." 4 of Cinderella's little friends scurried forward, and once again the godmother sang the magic words as she touched the mice with her wand. 4 dapple gray horses appeared and were hitched to the coach. And then the godmother changed Cinderella's old horse into a proud coachman, and Bruno the dog into an elegant footman. "And now for you, my dear," said the fairy godmother, tapping Cinderella with her wand. Where am I? Yes. And suddenly the torn dress became a lovely silken gown. Peeping out from under its skirt were dainty glass slippers, the prettiest in the whole world. As Cinderella got into the coach, her grandmother commanded her, above all things, not to stay at the ball past 12 o'clock, for if she stays 1 minute longer, that midnight the coach would become a pumpkin again, the horses mice, her coachman an old horse, and her footman a dog, while she herself would be dressed in rags. Cinderella promised to leave the ball before midnight, and she set off joyful in the royal palace. The ball had already started when she arrived, and the prince was politely bowing to the 210th and 11th young ladies. Anastasia and Drizella suddenly the what? Oh, okay. Suddenly the prince looked up and saw in the doorway of the palace the most beautiful girl he had ever beheld. Entranced, he walked past the sisters towards Cinderella, took her hand, and led her into the great hall, and among all the company. The king's son would dance with anyone else the rest of the evening, and for a minute would he let go of Cinderella's hand. Sisters and what? Wait, what? Her sisters and her stepmother never recognized Cinderella, wondered who the beautiful stranger might be. All the ladies studied her clothes and headdress and vowed to copy them the very next day, but the old king chuckled contentedly because his plan had worked. The prince had indeed found the bride of his dream. The palace clock began to strike midnight. Cinderella remembered her promise. "I must go," she cried in a panic, and freeing her hand from the princess, she ran through the palace and down a flight of stairs with the prince and the duke pursuit. One of her tiny glass slippers fell off, but she ran and leapt into her waiting coach. I get so lost. The clock was still striking, and the coach moved in its bed away from the palace. As it passed through the gates, the clock struck 12. Coach, horses, and all vanished. And their place was a pumpkin, some mice, a dog, an old horse, and Cinderella in her rag dress. All that remained of the magical evening was one glass slipper sparkling on her foot. The next morning, the king's son had it proclaimed throughout the land that he would marry the girl who had lost her slipper. This is too much reading. Where am I? Who had lost his slipper at the ball the night before. He sent the Grand Duke to travel about the kingdom in search of the girl whose foot would exactly fit the glass slipper. The Duke tried the little slipper on every princess, every duchess, and all the court, but in vain. Finally, he came to Cinderella's house. The stepmother, in great excitement, went to her, roused her lazy daughters. "We haven't a moment to lose," she cried. "There is a chance that one of you can become the prince's bride if the glass slipper fits you." And then she sent them scurrying down the Duke with the warning, "Don't fail me." Then she followed Cinderella, who had gone her room to make herself presentable for the Duke, and locked her in. No one else was to have a chance at so great a prize. When Cinderella heard a click of the lock, she realized too late what happened. "Please, oh please, you must let me out," she called, rattling the doorknob, but her stepmother dropped the key in her pocket and walked away, laughing her meanest laugh. She did not know that two little mice followed her down the stairs, never taking their eyes off the pocket where the key rested. Meanwhile, Drizzle and Anastasia were arguing over the glass slipper, which claiming it as their own. And the stepmother watched as first Anastasia and Drizzle tried to squeeze a large foot into the tiny slipper. Without success, she did not notice that the two quiet mice were busily stealing the key to Cinderella's door from her pocket and carrying it away. The Grand Duke took the slipper from the unhappy stepsisters and prepared to be off for the next house when Cinderella called from the stairs, "Please, your grace, may I try the slipper?" The stepmother tried to block her path. "It's only Cinderella, our scurrily maid," she told the Duke. But he brushed her aside. "Madam, my orders were every maiden in the land." The wicked stepmother had one more trick left. She tripped the Duke's servant, who was carrying the glass slipper, and it fell to the floor, where it shattered into 100 pieces. "Oh, this is terrible," cried the Duke. "What will the king say?" Cinderella reached into the pockets under her apron. "I have the other slipper." The Duke slipped in on her foot. Oh my God. The Duke slipped it on her foot, which, of course, it fit perfectly. Thereupon, the fairy godmother appeared and touched Cinderella with her wand, and all could see that she was indeed the unknown beauty who had captured the prince's heart at the ball. Cinderella was driven to the royal palace in the king's own coach. There, amid great rejoicing to the ringing of all the bells in the kingdom, Cinderella married the prince, and they lived happily. Oh my god. Biggest text, I can't read that. And they lived happily ever after. Finally. And this is just one. Yes, these are the same pictures from the movies, by the way, if I already mentioned that. This is just, if you want to read it, you can pause and read it. This is just some of the things they had to go through while animating. Since it's a pretty old movie, this is what they had to use. There's more text. Have fun reading. And then, I guess later on I can read more stories if you guys want to. But yes, these are all from the movies, just made into, able to read bedtime stories, which are really cool. If you guys liked it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, whatever it is you do. Share, and maybe if you guys like